Hello, this is Big Bad Granddad, and this is the first of a series of videos that I like to introduce to my Facebook family and to the world, basically discussing evolution and macroevolution and also creationism and how they not only how they differ, but some of the thoughts and some of the arguments from both sides of the spectrum. And when we start this video, I'm hoping that I get likes and views because if I find that no one's watching, well, I got other things I can do with my time. But I really hope and pray that the Lord will bless this effort that we can help explain to some, especially to some Christians, the differences that you have with people that believe in evolution, particularly macroevolution. Now, I mentioned evolution and macroevolution a couple of times. Let me explain. First of all, as a modern Christian, we know that parts of evolution, if that's what they call it, parts of evolution is science and it's true, but other parts are fairy tales, myths, lies, and poorly written science fiction. So let's distinguish the two sides real quick. And evolution in and of itself is okay. We know as Christians even that some animals changed. That's what I like to call it. They like to call it evolution. I call it change over time. Some animals were a certain way a few thousand years ago, and they may look different now. It's change. I believe that's a creational attribute that God put into his organisms to allow for diversity. So that's okay. And as Christians, it's okay to say that animals can change, or quote unquote, watching how we use this term, evolve. But the problem comes down is to that the other side tries to say that evolution and macroevolution are one and the same, and that is absolutely not true. Macroevolution means that an organism can start off as one type of animal or insect or plant and become a completely unassociated, different organism or animal or what have you. For instance, they believe, in essence, that a fish could one day become something completely different than a fish, a reptile, a mammal, even, if you will. If you look at the hierarchy of the tree of life, if you look at Darwin's teachings, a microbe became I'm just skipping over some of the transitions, but they believe that your great 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 ancestor was a fish. That man eventually evolved from a fish, a reptile, and on and on. So we'll talk about the Darwin's alleged tree of life later. So that's a huge difference. And animals changing over time, and look, it's still saying the same kind or type of animal. It's okay, but they say that an animal can become something completely different over time. There are billions of years is what they claim. So this is where we have huge differences, and this is where they have zero proof that that's even possible. That a fish can one day, over billions of years, become me or you or whatever. Even though sometimes we may look like a fish, or we may look like animals, and that's okay for us sometimes to look like animals. We have similar traits to animals. That's all right. But that's not common descent or common ancestry. It's a common creator. It's not that. Okay, the evolutionists like to point out that we share 98% of similarities with certain types of apes. Okay, this is true, but we also share 97% of DNA similarities with mice. But no one professes to be a rat, right? They just want to be, we're related to the apes. They don't want to they don't want to say that they're a dirty rat as well. So, and when you think about the billions of letters in DNA, 98% is still a lot of differences there. And I believe there's a lot greater than that, because there's what's called, again, you're going to get in the scientific fields, going to get arguments about everything, honestly. That's the thing I like. This is the thing I don't like about the science religion is that it's such a moving target. It's the truth until it's not.
You've got the canine kind, the coyote, and the domestic dog, and there's the feline kind, which is the cats, the tiger and the kitten, and you've got humankind. So Darwin said there'd be a change of kinds over many years. So could you give me one example of observable evidence of a change of kinds?
So, for instance, the fossil record shows the common ancestors of all carnivores, that cats and dogs were once linked, once united by a common ancestor.
How long ago?
This, I believe, was like 60 million years ago.
I don't want something I have to accept by faith. I want it to be observable.
Observable evidence. Well, I mean, if you're just asking me here on the street, there's not really much I can tell you in terms of observable evidence. Like, we would have to really examine existing data to draw conclusions of our own.
I would have to have faith then.
We would have to have some amount of faith.
Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution where he said there'd be a change of kinds?
Monkey to man, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, a change of kinds.
I don't really believe there's any proof for that yet.
Well, monkeys are the only ones with the 5th digit like we have.
Well, koalas have a 5th digit. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Think we're evolved from koalas?
No.
When I went to Washington, D.C., I saw they had a whole exhibit just on the...
In the Smithsonian?
Yeah, in the
Oh
Smithsonian.
wait, so that is just like some stuffed dummies,
Yeah.
like standing around a fire.
I'm gonna trust what those experts did. Those experts came up with.
I have a strong trust in evolutionary ideas based on the evidence presented.
Can you think of any observable evidence for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds?
I haven't seen it myself, but I believe what the textbooks tell me about it, so.
You've got faith in the expert?
I have faith in the experts, yeah. I guess similar to how religious people have faith that God actually exists, I have faith in the experts knowing what they're talking about.
The scientific method must be observable and repeatable. So could you give me one piece of observable evidence for Darwinian evolution?
Okay, I would point to, as one great example is look at the genetics of the stickleback.
What's that?
So stickleback fish are a very interesting collection of species that were recently isolated after the end of the Ice Age.
What did they become?
They're various species of sticklebacks.
They stayed as fish.
Well, of course.
Can you think of any observable evidence where there was a change of kinds?
Fish.
Human beings are still fish.
Human beings are fish?
Why, yes, of course they are.
How long did that take?
A couple of billions of years, millions.
A couple of millions? How is that observable?
It's not.
We came out of the ground as a mammal, and one mammal created...
Come out of the ground? Didn't we come out of the sea?
Huh? Well, initially in the beginning, we came out of the ground and the sea. After the great destruction of the...
So did we have lungs or gills when we came out of the sea?
You want to know something? Those that were in the sea, I guess, had gills, and those that were on land had lungs.
But if we came out of the sea, we had gills in the sea.
You want to know something? Who knows that we came out of the sea or we evolved from mammals?
So you don't know?
Huh? Of course I don't know.
I'm accepting that they did their science correctly.
Could you give me an example of Darwinian evolution, not adaptation or speciation, but a change of kinds?
These are changes of kinds.
They're still fish.
They're distinctly different fish.
We have thousands of examples.
Can you give me one?
I can give you thousands.
Just one.
For instance, I would say look at Lenski's experiments with bacteria then.
So what did the bacteria become?
The bacteria are still bacteria, of course.
That's not Darwinian evolution. That's not a change of kinds, is it?
It is a change. It is a change in the genetic makeup of the bacteria, which is
They're still bacteria. So what did the bacteria become?
A new kind of bacteria.
So it's still bacteria. There's no change of kinds. To summarize, the observable evidence that you give me for Darwinian evolution is bacteria becoming bacteria.
No, it is bacteria acquiring new metabolic capabilities.
You said before that there is lots of evidence for evolution. I just want one observable evidence for Darwinian evolution,
No,
just one.
But I gave you some. You don't want.
Not some, I want one.
Wait, you don't want that.
I want one. Yes, I do. I'm pleading with people.
You asked me to tell you. You asked me to tell you when I've watched one species evolve into another. Isn't that right?
No, one kind into another. There's 14 different definitions of species. So I want a change of kind.
When you're talking about kinds or change in families, you're actually talking about macroevolution. You're talking about changes on the level that separate, say, cats from dogs. species.
Could you give me any examples of Darwinian evolution?
Well, when you say examples of that, then you have to sort of look at over a longer time frame.
It has nothing to do with faith. Faith is something that I have to, unseen, I have to believe in.
That's it, unseen. Look, do you believe evolution?
Of course I do.
Are you a believer in evolution?
Yes, I am.
When did you start to believe evolution?
I started to believe evolution when I started to think out for myself.
Is evolution a belief?
Well, you know something, evolution is a thought process. Is coming to terms and checking out all the alternatives, like taking a look at the religion, man-made religions.
Let me ask you again, is evolution a belief?
No, evolution is, well, yeah, in a word, yeah, I could say it could be a belief.
When you say change of kinds, you mean the evolution of one species from another or to another? Yes, we have that in action actually in the Galapagos.
Could you give me one instance?
Yes, we have an example from a group of birds called Darwin's finches.
You take a look at the difference between the finches on the islands that all started out. I mean, that's very, very observable.
But that's not Darwinian evolution. There's been no change of kinds. What did the finches become?
They become genetically new and anatomically new, recognizably different species.
So they're still finches?
Well, of course, they're still finches, yes.
So they're not a change of, there's no change of kind.
Little birds that he had observed.
What did they become?
Their beak shapes.
They're still birds.
Yes.
3 finches that turn into different types of birds.
They're still finches.
Well, for example, Darwin and his study on evolution of the birds on the island that he went on to there.
Their beaks changed?
Their beaks.
They're still birds. There's no change of kinds. That's within the kind.
Just evolution on the beaks.
So that's called adaptation. It's not Darwinian evolution. There's no change of kinds. There's no different animal involved. I want something that shows me Darwin's belief in a change of kinds is scientific. You give me anything that I can see, observe, and test, which is a scientific method for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds.
Test and observe.
Could you give me observable evidence, which is a scientific method for Darwinian evolution, a change of kinds?
I would say
I cannot, I think. It's a hard question, actually. Mitochondrial DNA. So, can you repeat the question again?
Observable evidence, something where we don't have to exercise faith. Something that can be observed, like the scientific process, observable.
That's a good question. That one I'm not quite sure.
So you can't think of any observable evidence for evolution?
No.
How do you know it's true?
I'm not sure.
So Darwinian evolution is not observable, it's not scientific.
I guess so.
So it's unscientific, you can't prove it.
It's scientific, actually. You could prove it. It could be proven, just...
Do it for me.
That's hard. That's just too broad of a...
It's unobservable, that's why you need millions of years.
Yes, exactly.
You're trusting the biology majors and the biology professors know what they're talking about, and they can't even give me evidence of a change of kinds.
Well, then there isn't one. If they don't give it, then I wouldn't say there was.
Yeah. I just go on what I've seen and what I've learned from class.
So you believe?
Yeah.
You know what that's called?
What?
Blind faith.
Blind faith.
Also, just want to briefly mention that that there's no fossil record to show that an organism of any kind was one thing and became a completely different type of kind or organism, if you will. So different type of kind, there's no proof of that in the fossil record whatsoever, no transitional life form to ever support such a theory. The Bible clearly states in Genesis that all things would reproduce after its own kind. And that's an important fact that has never been able to be it's disputed, but never been able to be proved to be unfactual, that you will never find that a sheep can reproduce with a bird. It just doesn't happen. You will never find that a cat can have offspring with a dog. And scientists, believe me, more godless scientists than that, have tried to interbreed different kinds. The atheists or the evolution community would say there's no such thing as kinds. Well, I say to that, kinds was a term that was used for thousands of years, long before anybody came along, last couple of hundred years or so, and tried to classify everything to a taxonomy and try to say this belongs here and that belongs there. And it's still not a 100% consensus, even in the scientific community, of what belongs in what classification sometimes. So the term kinds was used for thousands of years, way before, again, these educated scientists came along and decided that, there's no such thing as kinds. No, it was used and understood to mean what it means. And you might not be, just because you're the same kind doesn't always 100% mean you can breed. I mean, there are two people that may not be able to produce offspring for some reason or another, but they're the same kind. But one thing is for sure, if you can breed, even if it's a hybridization, you are same kind. If you cannot breed, doesn't mean you're not of same kind, but if you can breed, you are of the same kind. That's why they don't like the term kind. But, wink, wink. We know better. We also want to talk about, speaking of science, we want to talk about the difference between operational science, which is, I love science. I love true science. And they don't like, again, for you to separate the operational science from what evolution science is. They try to lump it all together. Operational science cures diseases. It improves technology. It helps, it's the great things that we deal with and love in this life and in this world. We love science as Christians. But there's another type of science. Some people call it pseudoscience. That's an offensive term to evolutionists, so I won't call it that right now. But that's a different type of science. It doesn't have anything to do with something that's testable or observable and repeatable. Their science, the evolution science, also known as historical science or origin science, is not testable, is not observable, and is not repeatable. Different type of science than the operational science that, again, that creates cures and does all kind of wonderful things that everybody loves. They try to lump them in as the same, completely different. But that's another video. We'll talk about that another time. We want to talk a little bit about Darwin's white supremacy, that he actually taught that if you were, the darker you were, the less evolved you were. And as chocolate as I am, I take offense to that. So nonetheless, but he believed that whites were more evolved than darker skinned people. And I'm not having that. I don't know about you. Know that to be a bunch of crock, because I know some white people that aren't evolved at all. Just kidding. But anyway, Darwin taught this, and again, it's a white supremacy kind of a mindset. You may agree with it. I'm going to debunk it on another video, God willing, that he spares my life. If you're already my Facebook friend, shoot a like that you want to hear more. If you're not my Facebook friend, shoot me a friend request, so I can accept you. So when I make these additional videos on all those other subjects, you'll be notified of these important topics. Then we'll have a wonderful debate. I'm sure it'll be debates with Christians online, will be non-Christians, Muslims, atheists, all types of folks. We'll have hopefully it'll be an honorable and polite debate, but I'm sure it will get heated. But one thing, I won't allow death threats and things like that on my thread. So let's stop it here and hope to see you in the next video real soon. Take care. May Yeshua bless you. Talk to you soon. Goodbye.